Namaste. Welcome to the Shaman and the Mermaid, and I'm Michael.
And I'm Katrina.
We're here to bring you the latest astrological report. This is for the full moon on Sunday, October 13th in the sign of Aries. And we'll take you all the way up to the end of October to the next new moon on the 28th. We'll cover a little bit past that, but we'll get into that in the report. Should we start off with the mantra?
Sure. I'm pretty excited about this one because it's a good one. And it's not ours. It's actually Jimi Hendrix. And we're going to apply it to this report because it's perfect for the full moon in Aries, which is fire and a lot of power and exertion of energy. And opposite of the moon in Aries is the sun in Libra, which is ruled by Venus, and that's love and balance of love and keeping that equality of love. So you probably have already remembered the Jimi Hendrix quote, but it's when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. And that's perfect for this particular time.
When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. Jimi Hendrix.
Yes.
That's good. Well, what else is going on with that full moon that would kind of add a little bit more?
Yes, he's referring to this exact T-square to Pluto. This is astrodrama as well. So always on a full moon, the sun is at the opposite quadrant on the wheel. So exactly facing off to each other in opposition. And then if these two, the moon over here and the sun over here in opposition, then when you insert your fist for Pluto is squaring them. And the moon is our inner child, and the sun is how we express ourselves outwardly, and more to the moon, it's your inner child. But it's also that how you talk to yourself, that inner dialogue that's constantly going on. And then the sun is the expression of how you present in the world. Well, Pluto is the soul self. And maybe I like how you said it earlier today when we were talking. Explain what Pluto is doing in a square to anything.
Whenever there's a square in astrology, and in particular a T-square means there's 2 points that upper point is squaring. A single square is just 1 point, like the corner of a square. So T-square is 2 points, and it's like if two children are squaring off and getting into an argument. Let's say Katrina and I are little children, and then in steps the elder, the parent, the caregiver, and says, I don't care whose fault it is, you both are unbalanced, and we need to bring this into balance and find resolve between the two of you. And so that's what Pluto is. Pluto is the high soul, and Pluto's in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is karma, it's rules. We keep saying that it's the good path, red road, meaning you're walking your dharma, you're walking truth, you're in integrity. Capricorn is related, is government. So we're talking on an individual level now, but then when we expand it out to the world, it's government, it's institutions, it's banking, it's the rules and structures between intergovernmental rule, like the UN.
And Pluto's sitting there.
And Pluto's sitting there. And Pluto's squaring off to the moon, our emotions as an individual and our collective emotional intelligence. That's kind of low. And it's also squaring the sun, which is how we show up personality or our collective ego. And so the elder is stepping in, talking to our emotional intelligence and our ego personalities and saying, get it together, people.
I think the way you had said it to me was you skipped a beat.
Oh, so you asked me a short question, I gave you a long one. So basically a T-square means something was skipped that needs to be fixed.
And your soul's asking for you to fix it.
Yeah.
So this full moon is kind of like homework. Like the kids are saying, can we go out to the sleepover and to the D&D game this weekend? We're like, no, you got homework. You got to work on your soul self. And so let's go into Aries and Libra a little bit. The full moon in Aries, so the one kid is saying, I'm the fire starter, I'm the initiate, I'm the warrior, I am. And the moon is in this sign of all that I am initiate energy. And the moon is our emotion. So it's very emotionally charged on top of that. And think of that like, go back to high school, to that homecoming football game. And all the football players are so fired up. They're just like, all the time, all over the place, even when they don't score. You know, they're just full of testosterone, full of it. So there's a lot of full of it energy around this particular full moon. And on the converse side of, I kind of painted it as a little bit over the top and a little bit arrogant, which is where it can go. But then the other side of it, this could be that full of your confidence and full of your abilities and feeling pretty good about yourself, and you go take that stand on something that you've been wanting to do, fighting for something that's in the right way. So those are the two potentials for this full moon Aries, is like a lot of bravado and arrogance and full of yourself and
Projection.
yeah, projection, good word. And then the other side of it is like initiative and assertiveness and getting something done that really needs to be conquered for the self, because it's all about the self in Aries just in general. But then the moon is the inner self as well. So both of those playing out for a lot of self energy. And then Libra.
The sun in Libra, so the personality, the ego that we showed up with, Libra has to do with energies of understanding yourself through relationship. So if the moon in Aries is about you, the sun in Libra is about the other. How are you relating to others? Your parents, your boss, the people on your street, your cohorts that you go to school with, your wife, your husband. It's all the other. And when the other energy of Libra is out of balance, it can express itself as I'm being victimized. I'm a martyr. The other is doing it to me. And I'm powerless. I can't do anything. The other unbalanced expression of Libra is codependency and or controlling. Actually, Aries and Libra are very controlling signs.
Yeah.
Both of them try to control situations when they're out of balance. Because, or one way you could look at it, what's the common denominator of control? It's fear. Mm-hmm. There's a fear that you don't know something, you're not good enough, you're not powerful enough, you're not smart enough, you're not loved enough, you're not worthy enough. So what do? You'll control the situation. You either try and control yourself, Aries energy, or you reverse it and put it out and try and control the other, Libra energy. And so this can be a time, if you're feeling unbalanced or challenged, that you feel like a victim, you feel like a martyr, or you try and overexert yourself and take control, and it's kind of like being a jerk. Particularly if you've done something wrong, or you're in the wrong, and that square when Pluto in Capricorn comes in, that's the energy, the text, the phone call, the situation where somebody was saying you did something wrong, and they're right, or Pluto's right, you did do something wrong, and then you try and control it or defend it or explain it away or not engage in the situation, and that's the square energy. And the square energy is when that happens, it creates tension and blocking and repression.
Or breakthrough. You could clear a whole bunch when that difficult challenge comes in and you have to sit and work it out, and then you come to the other side of it and you realize, like, yeah, I'm sorry, I was being a little bit of a martyr or victim, or I was trying to bully the situation and be the dominant factor in that, and I wasn't listening to you. So a lot of breakthrough can come through a square or a challenge in a situation, but it can also be very repressive or suppressive if you don't let it clear through.
Good explanation. Pluto has everything to do with power, and Pluto is associated with the sign of Scorpio. Pluto and Scorpio are same energies.
Pluto's home in Scorpio.
Pluto's home in Scorpio. So Pluto rules the energy of power, and there are two powerful planets in Scorpio right now that are the backdrop to all this energy. Is it time to go there?
Yeah,
okay.
Go to Scorpio.
Right now we have Venus in Scorpio and Mercury in Scorpio. Venus is self-love, and your values. Values would be the most
Big
appropriate.
word
Big
there,
word.
yeah.
And it's not just, it's monetary values, it's financial values, it's resource values, it's
Moral values.
emotional values, spiritual values, self-values. It's all of that encompassed into one. And then Mercury has everything to do with communication, with listening, with speaking and learning. And they're in the sign of Scorpio, which has to do with death and transformation and power.
In fact, we're in Scorpio season. This whole next month is going to shift its energy very Scorpio-like. So it's a lot of transformation time, a lot of death of something. You know, it's not surprising that this comes at the time when we come into Samhain, or All Souls, All Saints Day, or Hallows Eve, Halloween, Day of the Dead. These are all coming up at the end of the month, and it's the sun moves into Scorpio as well. Scorpio is asking us to transform that energy that doesn't work for us anymore, that probably we have a little attachment to, and it's hard to sever. And this week here in Denver, we had a little snow yesterday, and everybody was preparing their gardens for it because we had the forewarning that it was coming. And you have to go maybe prematurely pull your harvest off the vines, and in order to do that, you have to, cut them or twist them off. And I like to twist them off as opposed to taking the knives and cut them, because it's a little more natural way for them to have fallen off anyway. And there's that severing that's painful, that death that comes. And it's hard for the one who planted it. You're like, oh, they're not ready to come off. It's, the death of the growth of that plant. They're now done getting the nourishment from the vine. And it's like the Mahamritanyaya mantra that is speaking to the same story in Sanskrit. But that death is the evolution then, or the beginning of the next life force for that particular energy that lets go or comes off the vine or releases itself. And the mantra, it speaks that when there is a death of something, there's a liberation that comes from that death. And so as we move into Scorpio, where you were going with all of this energy is asking us, like, what can die off? What can we twist off the vine and let go into another beautiful state? So my pumpkins now are dead, but they're still going to bring so much nourishment and life force to us in the form of culinary desires, or culinary delights. Desires too, because it might not make it.
That's a Scorpio thing too.
Yeah, right. The death of it in the pot as well as on the ground. But you transform energy. You make the shift into the next evolution of its higher good. And that's where we're at right now with this particular phase of the moon in Aries. Is look at where you're the initiate, where you're the warrior, where you have all your power, and how can you transform that into the highest evolution of where it can go next. And then let's repeat the theme at this point, because that's a good reminder. It goes to love. So Jimi Hendrix again.
When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace.
We got a long way to go, but I feel it. I feel us recognizing this as a collective, that we need to let go of our individual needs for power and go to a shift and let love be the power that wins in the end.
Well said.
Thanks.
Well,
Next aspect.
They're all related. They all keep coming back to the theme. But to stay in this Scorpio energy, the sun goes into the sign of Scorpio October 23rd. So that's the astrological month of Scorpio starting. So it'll be the sun, Mercury, and Venus all in the sign of Scorpio. And then on the 28th will be the new moon. So it'll be 4 planetary bodies in the sign of Scorpio. So it's a lot of that energy. And 2 things we want to bring up and we can see how this plays out to discuss. That has to do with Venus and Mercury. Number one is, I'll talk about the Mercury piece, and then you can talk about the Venus, opposite of Uranus, since you like Uncle Uranus. Mercury, starting on October 11th, which will be past the date that this video comes out, begins its shadow phase. That sounds Scorpio.
Ominous.
Ominous. Well, what I mean is, on October 31st, on Halloween, All Hallows Eve, Mercury is going to go retrograde.
Spooky.
Spooky. And I think this is going to be an interesting one. Normally, Mercury is the fastest moving planet. It goes around the sun 3 times a year, once every 88 days. And so as it does that, it passes through all of the signs about once every 2.5 weeks, pretty quick. Takes the sun 1 month to go through a sign.
It's Aries.
It's Aries.
It's fast.
It's fast.
It's got wings on its feet.
However, Mercury went into Scorpio at the beginning of October, and it will stay there until the beginning of December. So it'll be in Scorpio for 2 months.
A long time.
So what the shadow means is, starting on October 11th, Mercury will be at 11 degrees of Scorpio. It's going to go all the way up to 28, and then it's going to go retrograde all the way back to 11, and then it's going to go forward all the way back to 28, and then leave. So the shadow phase is the area we're going through right now up until the 31st of October is sowing the seeds for what Mercury retrograde's theme is going to be about. So if you're curious what a retrograde means, pay attention the next 2 weeks, and it's going to set the precursors or the foreshadowing of what is going to play out, what's important to review, what's important to go deeper into. And as a reminder, there's lots of things about retrograde. It can be challenging. It can be, breakdowns and mismeetings and miscommunications. Ultimately, though, Mercury in retrograde is seeking to put things back in alignment. Because if something is out of alignment, it's going off course, and you're retrograding back to put it back on course. And we don't always like being scolded or re-corrected to go on course. But it's not always bad. You can also think of it as a little retreat time. It's like, slow down. You don't have to send all your communications out right away. Take some time to go in deeper. Scorpio says go deep and know yourself and let go of something. You're holding on to a resentment from years ago. Mercury retrograde can be going into the inner realms of your psyche during that time and letting it go.
This time of year, Scorpio in general kind of sometimes gets a bad rap. I was just looking at an oracle deck of cards that one of our students brought in that had all the planets and, saying all the positives and negatives for each sign, how it can be in balance or out of balance. But when I got to Scorpio, it was like negative, 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 and then like one little good thing at the end. And that's generally how Scorpio gets viewed, because it's the stinger. It's a scorpion. And it's the death of something, which is, according to the Yoga Sutras, death is one of our biggest kleshas or obstacles to being our full self, as we're afraid of dying, so we don't step into our power and be who our full self is, because we're afraid of death. So here we are in death time, when all the leaves fall off the tree and all the garden goes into compost and decays and turns into really beautiful nurturing energy for the soil. But we don't look at death that way. We look at it as losing something or someone or ourselves, and we look at it as finite and final, and we sometimes think of it as we'll be in this dark tomb for the rest of our existence, and that's it. It's the end, final. But in the astrological wheel, and even in the yogic wheel, death is really the omega that's going to go into the alpha. It's the end and the beginning coming back around. Like when something dies, something begins. Like when that pumpkin falls to the earth and it decays and turns to mush and becomes part of the soil, it leaves the seed of itself, and it returns back this beautiful pumpkin vine for the next spring that might have 2, 3, 4 more than you had in this last season. So the end is really the beginning, and it's not to be feared, but it's challenging to go through the dark tunnel. It's challenging to go into the unknown. It's challenging to shed that skin and let something die off, especially something that we love so much and something that we're attached to. Maybe a pattern or a behavior or a way that we do things in life that's no longer serving. It's not part of our value system. So Scorpio energy in general is hard for us as humans, but really remember that we are spiritual people, spiritual beings in a human form, and this little human shell is only a smidge of what we are. We see 1% of the unseen. We're missing 99% of what's out there with our eyes, and our brain is only using 10% of our capacity. So this animalistic form that we are embodying is only giving us a smidge of what the spirit realm is really capable of. And the more that we advance our soul self, and the more that we let our heart crack open and feel love, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. So that Scorpio energy is asking us to crack open that heart shell and let your whole self be a little bit vulnerable. Let yourself go into some of the scary and the dark. I mean, this is haunted house time. And the kids, our kids are wanting to, work at the haunted house or even go with their friends. And I'm like, ooh, no, I get my little fear girl on. I'm like, I don't want to subject myself to that. But they want to go in and face it. And I really applaud people who have that kind of ability to watch the scary movies. My other son went and watched Joker this last week. And I'm like, why would you want to subject yourself to that fear and that kind of torturous energy to the soul? And what did he do when he came out of the movie? He said to us, I have a deep appreciation for you in my life, that I don't have to go through that darkness that the Joker went through in his upbringing. I'm like, oh my God, go see more scary movies, I guess, because it shows you how you can overcome your fears by seeing what love has, the power of love.
Okay, well, the last little bit, and we'll make it short, is that Venus, right at the full moon, is opposing Uranus. Mm-hmm. Venus in Scorpio has to do with what are your true values and getting down to what they are spiritually, emotionally, relationship-wise, and really understanding what they mean for your soul's journey here on the planet. When it's opposite Uranus, anything could come up.
I think you might feel a little challenged at this full moon time, internally, having to feel into your own self. You're going into your own haunted house, and you're being asked to say, what do you value? What do you love? What's important to you? How can you exert your power without being a bully? Because that's sometimes how our power comes out. How can we assert our power without being a jerk face? And then it's also that Uncle Uranus piece that's the scary piece inside the haunted house. What could come out at you? What could show up? And it might be the haunt of an old trigger wound that shows up at this time, because a lot of that ancestral energy comes through the veil at this time. The veil is very thin all the way up through
early November.
Really early November. The windows open for those old haunts to come in, and it doesn't have to be scary. Reconcile with your ancestors some of the hard stuff, or reconcile with your own ghosts some of that hard stuff, and let yourself figure it out. But Uranus is going to be there to be whoa on you, and it might feel a little daunting, but at the same time, Uranus is that innovative, revolutionary kind of the sky's the limit. We can change the world if we want to. Don't give up hope. Don't lose faith. It's optimistic. It's the wild card. So when those haunts come up and you're feeling a little bit fearful, ride the hope wave and take it to another level. Be the revolutionary in some of those wounds. Take your wounds out of the festering state and bring them into the healing state at this new moon in Aries, which is asking you to be brave. The warrior is brave. Aries is brave. Aries is in armor with shields and swords pulled and ready to fight. Like, use that to fight and conquer some of these fears that are resting inside you internally. That's the full moon. The full moon is the internal awareness and a big spotlight on them. So it's a little daunting to look at, but be brave. You got armor. Take it and go. Crack that heart open. Let Venus shine. Venus is ruling Libra on the other side. You know, that's her home base. And the sun is that outward expression. There's a lot of power there in Libra right now to help you balance those haunts and hurts of the past or of the future that we fear, and let that sun heal that energy.
All right, that's our full moon report for October 13th through the 28th. We'll come back to you for the new moon in Scorpio. 2 announcements. If you want to learn more about clearing ancestral karmas, join us for our Astrology 101 series, Healing Ancestral Karmas Through the Lens of Astrology, on October 27th.
27th, it's a Saturday, 2 to 4 at Karma. It's a Sunday, 2 to 4. And
3 to 5. And if you want to go on retreat, Manitou Springs is coming up. It's the day after Thanksgiving, November 29th, 30th, and December 1st. Check out the links below. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Namaste.
Namaste.